Follow along to see how we built this from start to finish. Alright, so today we're going to be making a bookcase that also acts as a staircase for my son's loft bed that I'm building. I want the bookcase to be a total of 16 inches wide that we'll be walking across, and then 12 inches tall at each step. So we're gonna rip this big sheet down into 15.5-inch sections. Then we'll take it to the table saw to get our final cuts down to 15.25, so that when we add our 3/4 inch piece on the back, we're at a total of 16 inches wide. So let's get started. Now we're going to rip the 15.5-inch sheets down to final width of 15.25 now that they're more manageable. All right, we're all set up. Let's get going. All right, now that we've got our strips down to the correct width, now we got to cut them to the correct length. So we'll need 2 4-foot sections, a 3-foot section, a 2-foot section, and a 1-foot section. Let's get to it. So as usual, I've underestimated the amount of 12-inch tall pieces I'll need, which I'll need a total of 14. So my 1 8-foot strip that I was planning to use for that is obviously not long enough. So I've got grabbed some scrap that I'm going to use to make the other 6 or 7, so that I end up with 14 total. So pull the table saw back out. All right, now we have enough material to make our 14 12-inch long sections that are 15.25 wide. And anytime you have to do a lot of repeating cuts, it's worth it in the beginning to set up a stop block so that you can, once you get the first one set up, it's boom, 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 and off you go. Now I'm going to go through each board, including the tops and bottom of each shelf, and mark the front edge that I'm going to round over, so that all the front facing edges don't have any sharp edges. So I'm going to mark the front face with tape, and those are the edges that I will round over. All right, time to round over all the edges we just marked. Before we do that though, is it just me or does anyone else have trouble cleaning or keeping their work area clean as they go? I'll be almost done with the project and I'll look around and I'm wondering who made this mess? And I'm the only one that did it. So it's obvious the answer. I don't know. Leave a comment down below. Let me know if you have the same problem. All right, let's get these edges rounded over. We're getting close to assembly, but I like to do all my sanding prior to. So let's knock out sanding all our pieces and then we'll start assembly. All right, now we're on to assembly, which is going to be a combination of regular screws wherever possible and then pocket holes as well, so that I can hide as many screws as possible in the assembly of this bookshelf. So let's get to it. I'm going to put you in time lapse because it's just going to be a lot of it's going to be a lot of setup as I go. Okay, we're on to day 2 of the build. And I think the easiest way for me, so day 1, we got the bookshelf carcass built. And day 2, we're gonna start by attaching the back to this bookshelf. I think the easiest way for me to do this is going to be to lay it flat. Then I'll place a full sheet of plywood on the back and I'll trace the outline from the underside. Come back with my jigsaw, cut close to that line that I trace, attach the back from there, and then I'll come back with a flush trim router bit to flush it up exactly to the back. All right, so let's get going. And to think, all I'll need is a couple 100,000 YouTube subscribers and I'll be able to get a helper. All right, we've got the rough cut out of the back now. It's time to add some glue. We're gonna put a couple screws just to hold it in place, and then we'll bring the flush trim router out to cut this down to final dimensions. Now we got it cut down to rough shape. I'm going to get my flush trim router bit and follow the outline to get this completely cut in around the bookshelf. So after about 100 screws, we're gonna go around with our roundover bit and knock down the sharp edge. And then we got the bookshelf done. And it's onto another part of the loft bed. That concludes the bookcase build. Bookcase slash staircase, we'll call it. Now we're gonna move on to the 4 sides that the bed will sit into. So I'll need to make 4 sides. We're gonna have some cool angles on those, so it's gonna take a little while. And we'll get 4 sides. We'll put a little border on the inside of that for our slats to sit on. And yeah, we'll just take it piece by piece and onwards and upwards. After cutting my panels for the 4 sides, I decided to work on the legs next, as I'll need their final dimensions before making the angle cuts on our side panels. I'm starting by cutting my 4x4 post, which actually measure 3.5 by 3.5, down to 3" by 3" posts, so that when I wrap them with plywood, I end up with a 4.5" wide post. Next up, we're cutting our strips of plywood that will be used to wrap our posts. All right, so we've got our 4x4 posts that we've now cut down to 3x3 posts. We have 16 strips, 4 for each post, that we're gonna be lining our posts in our 16". I'm sorry, we don't have 16" strips. We have 16 strips that are 3 3/4" wide. We're gonna wrap each post with 4 strips of plywood so that it gives us the same look as our bookcase. And along the way, we're going to be gluing and nailing each side. And then we're going to come back with our router. We'll flush trim each side and then round it over like we have the bookshelf, so it's all consistent look and feel. All right, let's get going. All right, so today we're actually going to work on the bed frame. And so we need our 4 sides, and I need 2 sides that are 78.5" long. Those are the long sides, and I need 2 sides that are 40 inches long. So that we end up with a 77" by 40" inside dimensions for the mattress. So let's get those cut. With the panels cut to length, it's time to add some unique angles and cutouts to give the panels character. here's one long panel. And so now I'm going to use this as a template to make the other side, which should go much faster. So I'll trace the first one. And use the jigsaw to cut close to the line. Then I'll clamp these two together and use the flush trim router bit to trace it and get an exact match. All right, both our long sides are now done. And so now it's on to the short sides. All right, now the difference is one of them is really going to be the entrance. And so I've got 4 inches kind of above the mattress, or I planned for 4 inches above the mattress to act kind of as a border around the bed to keep them from falling out. We also have something else that we haven't shown you yet that's going to help with that. But at the foot of the bed is where the bookcase / stairs will be. And so once he climbs up the stairs and comes into the bed, I want to cut down that 4-inch section for a foot on the footboard. And then just as an easier entrance into the bed. So let's mark that out and get that cut off. With all the cuts made, it's time to round over our edges, do some sanding, and add pocket holes for assembly. We have our 4 sides now. So now we're going to connect our 4 sides of our bed together to make essentially a rectangle. And then from there, we're going to make some inserts for our legs to sit in. But we'll take it step by step. So we have our 4 sides of the bed. Now we're going to assemble them with pocket hole screws. And I've got the pocket hole screws on the back side of this panel because this is the headboard that will be pressed up. There'll be a wall behind this. So by putting them on the outside, I'll be able to hide as many of these as possible without needing to plug them or anything like that. So that's why I put them this way. On the footboard, they're going to be on the inside of the foot because there'll be no wall on the outside of the footboard. So that's why I've done it this way for anyone watching and may have questions. So we're going to glue these and screw them similar to the way we put the bookshelf together. So here goes nothing. If I'm gonna have squeeze out, I'd much rather it on the back side of the joint than the front side. I'm not planning on painting these. I'm not planning to paint this bunk bed. So I don't want that yellow glue squeeze out on the inside seam if I can help it. That's beautiful. First corner went through well. No glue squeeze out on the front side, or just a tiny bit on the back side, so that's gonna be a nice strong joint. We'll do the same thing on the other, same front side, but I'm gonna attach the footboard. So as I mentioned earlier, these pocket hole screws are on the inside. This is the cutout for the entrance, so the top of the stairs will come up through here, and you'll climb right into the bed this way. So I'm actually gonna hop on the inside of this one. Because you can't do everything right on the first try. So I'm going just on the back side of center on the board with my glue, so that if I have squeeze out, it's on the back side and not the interior corner. That's very difficult to wipe completely clear of glue. One other tip is I use my corner clamp at the top, and if I'm in like a joint like this where there are, you know, five or four depending on the side pocket holes, I'll hold it at the top and then I'll use the middle two to actually secure it, and then I can remove the corner clamp and access my top pocket hole. That also allows you to take the bottom and adjust it in or out, so that at each screw point you are completely flush where you want to be for the corner. Beautiful. And like we wanted, we had a little bit of squeeze out on the outside edge, which means we had the right amount of glue and we have a nice strong joint. So now I'll do the same with the back panel. I guess if this was the front, we'll call the other the back. That has the outside bed frame assembled. So I have made a mistake on the build. I'm not too proud to admit when I've done something wrong. This front side is exactly like I wanted it. I measured for the, I wanted this curve to come right down to the front of the post. What I did not account for, I forgot about, was this side here. I should have taken the 3/4 inch off of this edge so that it was flush on this side too. Now, if I'm going to mess up, I would have rather have messed up on this face and not this face, because this is the one you're gonna see the most. The other sides, you won't see as much because it'll be up against the wall, or it'll be partially hidden by the bookcase. So we did make a mistake, but it still has turned out quite well. Now I just need to figure out how deep I want them to go. Meaning, how deep do I want the sleeve that this leg is going to sit in? Because I still have to make, so I have two sides of what's going to be a sleeve for the legs already assembled, and those are the outside bed frames. So now I need to complete the sleeve by adding the other two sides. And so I need to determine how deep I want essentially that sleeve to be. And then I'll cut the excess off of these legs. So let me do some math and we'll get back to the build. So now what we're working on are a couple shelves that are gonna go, if you've got your bed frame here, along the back wall there, I wanna make some shelves for like water cups and books and a lamp and his Tony box and just odds and ends that we'll want up there on the bed. So that's what we're working on now. With the back shelf complete, we're moving on to the pegboard next. I am loving this sun, but it is frying my butt today. So, brought out some sun protection. I am tight on space, so I do not have a drill press. And one of the things I'm working on today is this piece that we plan to turn into a pegboard, where we've got some pegs that we're gonna have shelves sitting on these pegs, which are just gonna be just a sheet of plywood cut to random sizes. But we can adjust the shelving locations through the pegs. I do not have a drill press, and because I'm tight on space. And so what I've decided to try before I drill into here and mark out everything, I got this Drillmate portable drill press, which basically turns your hand drill into a drill press. I'm hoping that it gives me enough control to get accurate holes with this Forstner bit. Oh, great. Looks like I need to build this before I can build the rest of the thing I'm working on. So, yeah, great. All right. See you back in a few minutes. We have it assembled now. For any of you taking inspiration from this video and want to create your own pegboard, underestimate this at your own risk, as it's quite physically and mentally demanding. I have been ripping down the final sheet of plywood this morning to make our bed slats. I'm gonna make 12 of them. And as you can see, I've cut them into 3-inch strips. I'm gonna cut them down to 40-inch long sections. I made 6 3-inch strips that are 8 feet long, so I'll get 2 slats per strip. And in order to prevent them from flexing when we put all the weight, like with the mattress and the people on top, I'm going to take this 1 1/4 inch strip and basically make a T, which will dramatically increase the strength of this, and it'll keep it from flexing, or at least it should. That's the idea. So first things first, I'm going to cut the thicker piece down to 40-inch sections. Like I mentioned before, anytime you have a lot of repeating cuts, it's worthwhile to set up a stop block after the first cut, and then you can pump out all your remaining cuts much faster. So that's what we're going to do here. For example, I'm real happy with that. But what we need to do is install a lip around the edge for these to sit on, because there's nothing to support them on the sides. Obviously, we have these sleeves on the corners to support the end ones, but in the middle, we're going to need sleeves. And so we might as well put a border all the way around, which is why I cut 3 extra in this width, so that I can make a border. And what we're gonna do there, just to make sure it's extra strong, is I'm going to glue brad nail with inch-long 18 gauge brad nails, which will probably more than hold it. And then I'll go back behind there once that's tacked in place, if you will, or held in place with the glue and the brad nails. I'm actually gonna go back around with screws as well, because that's essentially what's gonna hold all our weight. Well, transfer all our weight from the bed down to the post. So, so we'll get started on that first, because my thought is when I add this to the bottom, a strip of this to the bottom of our slats, I'm going to make this strip slightly shorter so that it could sit on the border all the way down, because I want to keep as much depth in this possible to keep our son in the bed. So so that's the idea. I'm going to have on the bottom side, I'm going to have that thinner strip that I mentioned, and I'm going to cut that shorter. It's not going to go all the way to the end here. So that's why I want to go ahead and put the border on, and then I'll take measurements and decide how long I want my thin strip to be attached to our slats. So let's take measurements and then attach them. All right, we've got the router table ready to rock. Time to round over some edges. Now we've got our pieces rounded over and ready to install. Now it's time to add our support to strengthen the slats. The slats are also getting the trifecta treatment of wood glue, brad nails, and screws. We've almost fabricated all our components at this point, so now all that's left is the odds and end pieces, like a handrail for the stairs and some supports that will keep the bed from racking. Now it's time to sand all our components before we add our finish. First, we'll wipe all our components one final time to remove any last sawdust before applying our finish. And for this project, we chose Wipe On Danish oil. install day is finally here. So we're going to start by getting rid of, or getting all his old stuff out and clear our corner. And then we'll take it slow and bring piece by piece up here and start final assembly. All right, let's get going. The final step is to swap out the ceiling fan for an LED light. That concludes this project. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed building. Please subscribe for more.